wish we stayed the same. I got way too many thoughts in my brain. I got memories that run through my veins. I'm not one to blame, but I could point out every way that you changed. Some things stay up while others go right down the drain. And lately we've been going down in flames. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm at least my therapist is saying that I should. I don't believe her, but I really wish I could. Instead, I guess I'll stay misunderstood. Oh, 'cause I'm stuck now, just trying to figure a way out. I've tried but can't seem to slow down, and I don't know if I want to. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm seem to slow down, and I don't know if I want to. 'Cause I'm stuck now, just trying to figure a way out. I've tried but can't seem to slow down, and I don't know if I want to.
Tinsley sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Barbizzo FTF Cup Series. Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag. Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are going wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they're going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Get your front there.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
Canvas is in. After a wild season opener a week ago, SimCAR and its Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series head to Sebring to see which drivers can do well in the state of Florida tonight. Tonight, FTFGG glad to have coverage of the second round of the campaign here from Sebring. Justin Prince, Chad Irvine with you with Zach Johnson in the producer's seat as we get ready to go racing. 2 more races down here at Sebring. Special event week when it comes to Sebring 2, so many of these drivers have been putting in their minutes leading up to this event for SimCAR tonight, Chad.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic way to continue the season. Race number 2 of 8 after Road America a couple weeks ago. These guys looking to get back at it, and they're laying down some fantastic lap times here in qualifying.
Of note, coming into tonight, Penguin RC Simulation GTP, the top running organization with its Penguin RC Simulation counterparts, Kingsbury, along with Sonnen, as well as Crossgrove and Forest, within 4 points of each other at the top of the team standings. Simply Inspired, Local Racing also doing well, tied up with DBR Racing, tied for 3rd. But of note, one team did move itself up to the prototype starting tonight, that being DBR Racing, in fact, with Aaron Beaver, Dustin Lee Wilson, and Ryan Steinhoff moving up to the quicker class. Double the entrants, in fact, this time around when it comes to those respective prototypes.
Yeah, looking forward to that larger GT or the prototype field where got some interesting drivers throughout. You see Blake Reynolds in there, Nate Stewart, some familiar names, Flynn Lazier, son of Indy 500 winner Buddy Lazier there, qualified 3rd at the moment. Looks like that's where he's going to start. But these guys really doing a good job making a show of it here in the prototypes after a struggling field a couple weeks ago.
With that, the drivers are all set to go for the sprint part of the card tonight. Let's take a look in turn at how these drivers will start off this evening's event here from Sebring. The driver who dominated the respective class last time out, Sam Adams, starts off at the pole. He is the overall series points leader as well with 90 points. Start alongside his teammate, Blake Reynolds. Flo Lazier amongst the top 3 as well, expecting big things once more from Lazier, with Nate Stewart, someone who impressed in his last start, starting 4th. Robert Lowry in the top 5 overall, Chris Wentz, with Aaron Beaver, Brian Steinhoff, and Dustin Lee Wilson. And a shout out to Justin Malone, the last of the starters in the prototypes to round out your top 10 overall tonight.
And your pole sitter in the GT's Christian Youngwall with Joshua Filia on the outside of row number 1. They got Nicholas Johnson and John Marshbanks, Jack Belton and Cody Crosgrove, as well as Jake Fisher and Jonathan Taylor. Like Kevin Fanning and Ray Kingsby are wrapping up the top 10 in the GT. Some familiar names if you're familiar with the series, starting there in the top 10.
See how some of the other drivers shuffled out in respect to the pylon. Some of the amateur drivers like Marwan Mofta along with Brian Son in the top 22. Alexander Abedi along with Jeff Johnson starts 24th. Then you have Mario Lucy along with Tim Brokaw as well in the AMs. The AMs in the red, mind you, with Jin Wang inside the row 14 spot with Matt Kingsbury. Drew White, Matthew Johnston wants the top 30. 4 other entrants tonight in Josh Ondo along with Daniel Miglin. Marcus Ciasco, the only driver not to set a time in qualifying this evening was Gary Freeman. So on that note, the drivers getting themselves situated and ready to go. How things work in this respective series tonight. The drivers this evening will have the sprint race and the feature race on the docket. 15 minutes on the clock for the sprint race, then 45 minutes for the feature race. And to put it simply, you do well in the sprint, set yourself up well for the feature race side of the card. It's one of several sprint and feature format races of the campaign, with the 2 endurance races mixed in as well.
Yeah, these sprint races do award half points compared to the feature as well, so drivers want to do everything they can to work their way through the field and set themselves up for a solid starting position as well, because that does directly carry over. No invert like we used to run in the series. These drivers are aware of all of that, and they're getting ready to take to the track for 15 minutes of tight competitive action with a huge and healthy GT field back behind these 10 prototypes as well.
So, a lot to consider for tonight's race. What are you considering with tonight's action if you're in the cockpit tonight, chat? Because it is special event week with the 12 Hours of Sebring also on the platform this week. How in turn do you think that will play into things with the testing some of the drivers may have done?
Yeah, I think that some of these guys are going to be very, very, very familiar with this track from all the running that they've done here over the last couple of weeks, just getting everything ready for that. That translates over very well. And then, you got some drivers that maybe don't participate in those special events as much, and they this is one of those tracks where I think a lot of the guys are going to be pretty comfortable with it. It's run fairly often here on the service, but these guys working their way about halfway through their pace lap at this point, and it's going to be an interesting race. Driver's going to be very aggressive here early on, especially in the smaller prototype field. You might see some more aggressive moves in the sprint, trying to work your way up, because the penalty isn't going to be as great compared to where, if you're in the GTs, you might lose 20 spots or so, just if you get into some trouble early there. So maybe a little more aggression out of the prototypes. Can't wait to see what this 15-minute sprint brings.
Who's your pick for this respective race for the sprint?
I think I've got Blake Reynolds in the prototypes, and I think you might see John Marshbanks make some move, work his way up through the field in the GTs as well. What are your thoughts?
Well, Marshbanks definitely didn't have the luck on his side, it seemed, last time out with some of the incidents. Yunwall has looked strong. Response for the GT3s. But remember, Sam Adams looked very strong, especially in the sprint race. But the question is going to be, how do drivers like Nate Stewart play out in the mix of that battle? We'll have to definitely see once the race gets going to answer your side of the question. But with that, drivers just about all set to go. Nate's lap leading its way down the Almond Straight. The main slipstream sections on the racetrack tonight. Main passing opportunities include the run up to Sunset Bend, the run through the hairpin in, as well as Cunningham throughout the evening tonight. Track conditions as well. Very hot track conditions as we get ready for this green. All set to go. It's SimCAR Penguin RC Grand Am Series competition from iRacing's virtual Sebring Raceway. Control of the field for the prototypes. It's Adams and Reynolds. Stewart already spinning the tires, trying to line it up for the green. Green flag is out. We're underway from Florida.
Fantastic jump, looking to make it 3 wide early on. That was Flynn Lazier popping out of line. These guys diving into turn 1, and wow, they put on some fantastic moves right there.
Nate Stewart having to back up, drop back to 4th. 2x2 most of the rows as the prototypes make it through cleanly. Here come the GTs. Yunwall with a good start. Already Joshua Filyaw under attack by Nicholas Johnston. In the battle for position. Of note, 2 prototypes with issues. Steinhoff and Beaver in their team debuts in that class having issues in the grass. These drivers will have to pass them.
A lot of battle side by side throughout the GT field. Jack Belton lost a couple of spots there, but he continues on currently in the 6th spot as he just got passed by Cody Crosgrove there for the 5th position.
That is Matthew Johnston, who started towards the back of the respective class. So the 404 machine having some troubles there. Part of Pony Express presented by TWR. Already losing the main grouping with spoiler damage. Looking up at the prototype leaders. Already the pace carrying the top 4 up by 2 seconds over Robert Lowry and company. It's Sam Adams who dictates the pace this time to Sector 3.
Front 4 in the prototypes kind of sliced themselves out. They got about a 1.5 seconds back to Robert Lowry, currently P5 there. And then there's some fantastic battles and basically a freight train with some drivers trying to make moves all throughout this GT field. Jack Belton still holding on to that 6th spot Further on back, though, Ray Kingsbury trying to make some moves. Didn't get the qualifying lap down that he wanted, but he's right over the back wing of Jonathan Taylor.
Looks like some trouble towards the back of the grouping of the GTs. Two of the AM drivers getting together with the Team Watson Racing branding. Having to come out of the grass there. Let's take a look towards the front of that set grouping right now and see how things are playing out with Jack Belton, who looked strong the last time out, took advantage of a lot of attrition. He looks to run away from Jonathan Taylor, Ray Kingsbury, and Jake Fisher.
Yeah, Kingsbury right on the back of Jonathan Taylor at the moment. He's all over, using every bit of racetrack available to him. Currently just sitting in that slipstream. They've got to work together if they want to catch up to Belton. But I think Kingsbury's an aggressive driver. He wants to make a move and work his way through this GT field.
See how close some of the drivers are getting as well. Kingsbury still looking to try and poke around a part of the Penguin RC simulation side, looking to gain ground on the prototype counterparts for the team standings. Speaking of prototypes, let's take a look at what happened to some of those drivers. We mentioned some drivers taking a switch over to the BMWs and the hybrids. Not a good start for the teammates.
And just the thing snapped right under braking. That does some heavy damage to that car. That's Steinhoff and Beaver that are both currently sitting in the pit lane.
Two DBR racing machines significantly damaged. As a result, they'll have to regroup for the feature race. Already far back behind the rest of the pack. And the only two drivers, in fact, have to come down to the pit lane with the damage repair. Take a look back at the battles. Still bumper to bumper, some of the groupings are. Belton's now closed up to Cody Cosgrove. Marchbanks, I should say, also in the midst of this fight.
And Marchbanks really wants to hold on to this this fourth position now, and he's doing everything he can to defend from Cosgrove. But Christian Youngwall really pulled away, almost 3 seconds clear already, as we're currently wrapping up lap number 2 here around Sebring. And these guys being very aggressive. I think that just about anybody in this freight train wants to pop out of line at any time, but you have to time it right, because if you don't, you're just going to get freight trained out and getting a big run. Now they go through Sunset Bend, and while it's only 3 p.m. virtual center and almost in close contact there, big accordion effect with Marchbanks almost getting in the back of Johnston.
Cosgrove, keep in mind, second in the class, third overall in the driver standings to start off the season after the run over at Road America. Run on the outside. Had to really burp the throttle with Marchbanks sticking it. Crossover time for Cosgrove.
And he's going to be on the inside, coming to this next braking zone. He gets the move done, but can he hold it on corner exit? Jack Belton now wants to get his hand in the pot.
Oh, Marchbanks with the reach back, able to make the pass back. Marchbanks really trying to make up for the really rough start to the season, with some of the attrition seen before. 12th in the class standings after Road America.
And I think that Cosgrove was really caught out by that move, was not expecting. Now he goes back to the inside, some contact there. Bank doors again, yes, one more time. And then, oh my goodness, this is a 3 wide with Jack Belton.
Crash at the back at the hairpin. 3 wide still with Marchbanks trying to hold on. Cosgrove middle. Belton taking a risk up the inside. Can they get through cleanly? Yes, they somehow do.
Fantastic bit of racing now, and Jonathan Taylor looks to get his way into this fight here. He's going to get past, and Marchbanks, I think his rhythm is thrown off. He's lost now 2-3 positions out of it as Kingsbury goes by.
What a brave move from Belton. What a strong job by the rest of the pack to hold on there. Marchbanks getting the worst of it position-wise now. Ray Kingsbury, yet again, trying to slice and dice. But 9 times out of 10, even 99 times out of 100 at Sebring, that's a crash.
Yeah, that was a fantastic bit of driving to keep things clean, 3 wide, and drivers really seem to find their groove now. We're about halfway or almost halfway through this sprint, and really shows you how competitive this series is with these drivers. I mean, just about from 12th back through 20th, you can't find a gap in traffic.
Let's take a look at some of the error replays and what happened in some of these sequences so far. This involving some of the drivers in the hairpin. This is what stacked it up.
A slight bit of contact sending one around, and think that was a good bit of sportsmanship there, just kind of waiting for the Team Watson Racing car to come back around. And those TWR cars, very recognizable. They really stand out here.
That was Alexander Betty, and meanwhile, one of the Kingsburys going around, round.
Did a good job to keep it off the wall, but still lost a ton of time there.
Matt Kingsbury, and guess what? Drew White now joins the fight and nearly to the back end and to boot. And the tough thing is, to go for a slide, that can chew up some of the tire wear.
Absolutely, these drivers doing a great job holding on, and in this sprint it's only 15 minutes, but by the end of it your tires are starting to fade, so going to be interesting to see how these guys do as the season continues. And Team Watson Racing, they've got two teams here with Miglin Luce Abedi and Drew White there on Team 1, and then they've got TWR Esports as well with Jeff Johnson back there in the GT3s. And these drivers really, I've known them for quite some time on the platform, and they love to just race just about anything that they can get their hands on.
So Team 1, 2, 3, meanwhile, at the front, Flynn was here just moments ago, passing by Blake Reynolds. Nate Stewart still holding on in the train as well. And for the first time today, lap traffic is ahead. Sam Adams quickly getting to work on Gary Freeman, and traffic management could become a major factor, a long train of GTs to deal with.
Flynn Lazier going to be very comfortable here at this track. He was a former Road to Indy driver, formerly Road to Indy, almost some contact there. I believe there might have been.
Daniel Miglin has been spun off the circuit in the 41 in the backdrop. That was in the midst of that traffic management as he pulls off to the side of the track and waits for the gap.
As I was saying, the Flynn Lazier very comfortable here in the Road to Indy, that formerly known as Road to Indy, at least. Going to be racing here in the real world this weekend, and that just shows how busy this track is. I believe it's the 4th event that they've had there in the past month and a half.
Time indeed for Flynn Lazier. Showed plenty of speed last time. Speaking of those who showed a lot of speed, Nate Stewart riding on board with the midst of this as well. See just how tight some of the braking is in these respective sections. Nate Stewart in particular really impressed some because he's seen more so as an oval driver on the platform. He's picked up a lot on the roadside though since joining the Rise Esports program.
Yeah, the top 4 in this prototype: Adams, Lazier, Reynolds, and Stewart, all less than a second apart from each other, respectively. Gap from 1st to 4th currently 2 seconds, as they currently have to weave their way through traffic, and some of these GTs are really causing havoc throughout the field.
And you can see just how tight some of the maneuvers have to be right now. Does this open up the door for Reynolds? No. So already coming up to 3 estimated laps to go. 5 minutes coming up on the clock for the sprint side of the card tonight. Top 4, 2-second buffer over the rest of the field when it comes to the prototypes. Shout out to those amongst those in debuts tonight. Justin Mallow up to 8th. Justin Lee Wilson up to 7th. Amongst those new in the class today. Speaking of those who are doing a strong job quietly, look at the gap for Am. The 191 has been doing a strong job. That is Mofta, who is up 10 seconds over Son, who had that strong run of the M class last time, as another driver's off.
Marwan Mofta, a very strong driver over on the rallycross side, and he's working his way into the GTs, getting more and more comfortable as time goes on in this series. And man, he's putting on a show with such a huge lead out there today.
Look at some of the air battles. Jeff Johnson also looking to battle with Wayne. Wayne in the Super 4. Some joke about that car. And as the Pony Express machine tries to still hold on here, everybody seems to love the Ford. I know I say that a lot, but it seems like every time there's a Ford on screen, the entire crowd goes loud on a lot of these broadcasts throughout the league scene on iRacing, as one car is across the Broadway around.
That's out of Sunset Bend. Dangerous move there across traffic as well. Able to get it woed up, and they're going to take their way down the pit lane now. So that's Gary Freeman, who currently working his way down. And look at the battle for the overall lead. Flynn Lazier caught right back up to Sam Adams. He's poking his nose left and right, and these GTs making things hectic for him as these prototypes work their way now through the front of the through the GT field.
Jack Belton on the left side to go around. This opening up after they nearly ran over Jonathan Taylor. Now to the right side to get around Phil Yaw. Back to the left on the maneuver for Cosgrove. The teammates looking to scrap. They have about a 6 to 7/10 cushion building up. Now up to 9/10. Nate Stewart gets wrecked in the traffic.
Blake Reynolds went by. Stewart's going to lose a ton of time and positions. He takes a tow back to the pit lane, so that's going to be his sprint race over, and he's going to start in the 8th spot once we get to the feature.
Here they go. Lazier trying to take the long way, heading up the Sunset. Down to the left side.
You can get a fantastic run off this corner. Think about the crossover move. There it is. But does he have the run off the corner? Wait and see. That's going to give the advantage to the inside once again. Back to Sam Adams going into turn number 1.
Adams still has the inside line heading up through 1. Lazier really loose up through the outside. Expecting the white flag next time by. Adams back on the defense. Only a few more cars to deal with.
Yeah, Lazier sent it in very hard there. He wanted to get clear and slam the door. The back end just stepped out, and that's going to give the advantage back to Sam Adams. Can Lazier catch back up without lap traffic this time?
Well, they do have one final driver, the leader for the GT3s, Christian Yunwall, who has been very strong all race. Nicholas Johnston also making up for some bad luck for the Fords last time out in Road America in the class. But the overall lead is still on with Lazier. Within 3/10 is Lazier to Adams. Adams trying to keep the momentum going here to start off the season. Lap and a half to go.
Battle back for 7th spot in the GT3s between Kingsbury and Marshbanks. Kingsbury just got that position, and now Marshbanks looks to go back up the inside. They're side by side.
Marshbanks, he's been fighting essentially on the treadmill around this spot throughout the race today. Fisher in the popcorn seat. Marshbanks gets sent. Marshbanks slides off the track into the tires.
And it looks like Kingsbury was not expecting him to break so early. Possibly a bit of net code there, but Kingsbury is going to continue on, and that's just unfortunate for Marshbanks, who's going to have some work cut out for him once we get to the sprint, or to the feature.
Tough break for Marshbanks, who had been running in the top 7 overall all throughout the race. But all of this is wild. The white flags waving up in the stem from Barney. Final lap given in sim to the drivers. Adams leads by half a second. Sam Adams, keep in mind, has a fair bit of road experience in amongst himself as well, on top of his elusive sim racing career. That road experience really shining on this platform right now in this cards throughout this season so far for Adams.
And with that spin for Nate Stewart, that gives Blake Reynolds a bit of breathing room back in third. He's got a second up to Flynn Lazier, but he's also got 6 seconds back to Robert Lowry. So Blake Reynolds is going to just kind of chill in the third position and kind of take things easy once we get closer and closer to the feature race. John Marshbanks continuing to lose some spots, so back to 17th in class after his contact.
So Reynolds slowly closing up to Lazier now. Down to 2/10 here all of a sudden. Reynolds have something going here. Reynolds last time by picked up a good 1.2 seconds on Lazier.
Yeah, I thought he was going to take it easy and be content with the third spot, but he is really pushing as we look at him. Just that focus, that determination, and you can see how quick those hands are reacting to all the bumps. This is a very, very bumpy and treacherous track for these guys, and you can see that in the hands when they go through these corners.
Reynolds losing ground, though, coming up through Sunset for the final time. Santa Adams comes out of the final corner. Adams once again a winner in SimCAR. He does it in the sprint race at Sebring over Lazier and Reynolds, a team 1, 2, 3 to start the night.
And by the way, speaking of that domination in the GTs from in the AM class from Mofta, but Christian Youngwall doing the same. He's got a 10-second lead over Nicholas Johnston there for the GT Pro lead.
Youngwall comes out of 4. Youngwall, the class leader, picks up the W and adds to his totals for Simply Inspired Quokka Racing. Let's take a look back at the AM leader. Off to very quietly put on a clinic. After dealing with some traffic in front still, but coming to the checker flag, it's Marwan Mafta who wins in the sprint.
Fantastic racing all throughout, and these guys making it look maybe easy, but also hectic at times because they did not make it easy for themselves, especially those prototypes working their way through traffic.
As the drivers coming across the stripe. Overall, 29 finishers. Check that 30. Gary Freeman able to get to the checker flag, be it a few laps down. But in the end, an exciting one to start off the evening with the sprint side of the night tonight, as Micklin will be the final driver to cross the stripe here for the sprint race. Drivers now getting the chance to advance up to the warm-up to prepare for the feature race. Once again, the result was Sam Adams with the checker flag, Jan Wall picking up the GT3 victory, Mofta picking up the M victory. We'll take a quick break. It's the feature race coming up right after this. Welcome back to tonight's coverage of the SimCAR Penguin RC Grand Am Series from iRacing Virtual Sebring Raceway. Just Prince Chad Irvine with you, Zach Johnson, the producer's seat. As we get ready for tonight's feature, we're coming off an exciting sprint race, which seen plenty of shuffling and some attrition that popped up in turn. It was Sam Adams who picked up the sprint race victory by 1.4 seconds over Flynn Lazier. Blake Reynolds, Robert Lowry, and Chris Wetz the top 5. Dustin Lee Wilson picked up 6, Justin Maluo in 7th. The rest of the top 10 were part of the GT3s. That included Christian Youngwall, the GT winner. Nicholas Johnston, Cody Crossgrove also finished top 10 overall in the race, Chad.
Yeah, there was some fantastic racing all throughout the field with Joshua Philwaugh taking the 4th spot in the GTs, and you got Jack Belton and Jonathan Taylor, Ray Kingsbury, Kevin Fanning, Jake Fisher, and Navarre Luce. Then you got Marwan Mafta, the AM class leader, finishing 18th overall. Then Zhang Wang and Jeff Johnson wrapping up the top 20.
Son and White, 2nd and 3rd amongst the AM drivers in GT. And it's Eddie and Matt Kingsbury. Tim Brokaw, we've seen a bit of problems with in 25th. Marcus Siasco quietly in the 26th position. Marshbanks 27th. Josh Ondo in 28th. Then Daniel Miglin 29th. Nate Stewart, once the prototypes crashed amidst the traffic management, in 30th. Once the drivers also towards the back, Matthew Johnston, Gary Freeman, Ryan Steinhoff, and Aaron Beaver. So with that, a lot of drivers and a lot of teams having to think about big things here, let's put it that way. Another race setting things up here for the feature. It's 45 minutes though, and a lot can happen over the course of that time, as we've seen at Road America last time.
Got a mandatory pit stop here in this race, and the biggest thing for these drivers in this warm was getting used to the full fuel load. Drivers were running a very reduced fuel for that sprint, and it makes things a little different there. The car's going to be a little bit heavier, and it's going to handle just that much differently, but the starting grid for this race will transfer over from those last results. Of course, the prototypes that's finished at the back of the overall field will be able to work their way back up to the front of the field, and it's going to be interesting to watch because some of those guys that did wreck out early in the prototypes were some fast guys, so have to wait and see how they do working their way through prototype traffic.
I'm very curious at the same time to say about which teams step it up for the feature. Who do you think could show the most improvement out of those who had some bad luck in the sprint?
You know, it's really hard to say just because of how many guys did have issues. We saw Marshbanks, I think he's going to have the most work cut out for him, starting 20th in this class, and I think that he's going to have to work his way up through. Stewart, starting 8th, is going to have some work cut out for him as well. He was on the podium before his incident took place, so both of those guys going to have some room to work their way through the field. They're going to have it cut out for them, but I think that both of them are talented drivers enough that they can do it, as well as a couple other guys like Matt Kingsbury and Tim Brokaw going to have the opportunity to pick up some positions.
Once again, the results carrying over from the sprint race, so the same starting grid formation. Remember, last time out, the prototypes were able to move up to the rest of the prototype field for the green flag. So amongst those who are looking to try and build up and make up points, Nate Stewart, Ryan Steinhoff, and Aaron Beaver amongst those prototypes that we referred to. So on that note here, in terms of the set strategy, how do you break this down here for tonight on how you would play this? How would you do this strategy? About 50% of the tank for reference.
I think that you just have to wait until the tank is empty. I mean, with the way that these guys push and push and push, if you wait or you stop too early, it's going to be very difficult for some of these guys to kind of take advantage of some of the. You know, you're not going to see a bunch of fuel strategy like you might see in some oval series or something like that. But these guys know what they're doing. You don't see many guys going to start on a light fuel load and try to fill it up on take advantage of the back half, but it's going to be fun to watch as these guys continue. The GT field gets rolling as they build themselves a bit of a gap to the prototypes.
Look at the temperatures, and a major difference for the start of this race compared to last one. Remember, it started in the 100s, the track temp. It's down to just 94 now.
Yeah, you see the partly cloudy skies there as well. That's going to cool down the track, and you know, it's last quarter here is called Sunset Bend, but we're racing under this hot, bright sky, and it's going to be interesting to watch with this how this track changes, because we won't have that sunset come into play here tonight. Can't wait to see how these drivers are able to take advantage of these cooling track temps and see how everything plays out as the race goes on.
In these respective drivers racing as part of championships with prizes provided by Penguin RC Simulation. Includes per week race prizes such as $15 credits towards rewards with the first place finishes on the average between the sprint and the feature for this round format. Second place $13 credit, third place $10, fourth place $7 credit, fifth place $5 credit, with the top and finisher receiving a $10 credit towards any order, 7 for second, 5 for third in the M class. All of that as well with the total value estimated for the prizes overall in the classes, $395 per class. Chance to order with Penguin RC Simulation, which includes a lot of various sim racing products in their product lines and a history with RC cars, hence the RC part of the name. For more information, go to shop.penguinrc.com for more information and to see what you can get yourself geared up for in your sim rig. Just about all set to go for tonight's action. Your keys to victory for the feature.
think the biggest key, I think, for the prototype is going to be working their way through traffic, but the biggest overall key is just keeping the nose clean. This is a track with so many bumps, and it's so easy to kind of have some contact when trying to make a pass. And there's the slightest bump can upset the car and either cause you to go wide or hit another car, and that's where things are going to get you into trouble. So just keep the car clean, point it in the right direction, and keep that foot down. These guys are going to have some fun and have some 45 minutes of fantastic racing action here from Sebring.
All set to go. Team 1, 2, 3 up on the front. Then you have Robert Lowry, fourth spot. Lowry looking to see if he can try and keep things together. He kept things close. Give credit to him. In the last race, within about a couple seconds before the traffic management started to separate the pack. How will things play out now that he's amongst the top 4 grouping to start for the green flag in the prototype? So let's find out. It's Sam Adams on the left side. It's Flynn Lazier on the right side for the racetrack. Get ready for the green flag. It's feature time for the SimCAR Penguin RC Grand Am Series. From Sebring, we're underway once more from the Sunshine State. Good start for the teammates side by side. Reynolds watches as Adams clears himself into 1. Very clean start amongst them, Chad, here. The top 3 teammates fighting all while the GTs side by side still up to the starting straight. Already the Ford of Johnston looking for a move.
2 by 2 into turn number 1. They're trying to get themselves sorted out at least a little bit. Jack Belton dropping a couple spots. He's under pressure from his teammate in Ray Kingsbury, and he's going to try and stick it around the outside, still side by side with Jonathan Taylor, and these guys all battling throughout this GT field.
Yeah, we're playing defense, so is Belton. Old Fisher in the midst of the Hornet's Nest. Belton in the dirty esport machine able to make the pass there. So a clean start for them. Off note, the top 2 in the prototypes have already broken away by 2 seconds, you see on the pylon. That's in part because Robert Lowry was able to jump into 3rd. Lowry able to hold off Reynolds, and now Stewart heading off to Sector 3.
Fantastic battle there and a great start from Lowry. Reynolds not the start that he wanted. I think he's going to be able to work his way up to 3rd, but this hole he's dug himself early is not going to benefit him in the long run. And these guys continuing just to log some laps. It's early on here, and a little bit of a mistake there is we're going to have some moves throughout this field, and man, that's going to drop Lowry back to 4th, Stewart up to 3rd.
Lowry having to lift off a lot there to make sure we didn't slide out from the grass. So Nate Stewart, just like that, has gained more spots than he had prior from the sprint race. Still needing to pick up plenty of ground for the points overall lost compared to the last run. Speaking of those looking to run up at the front, here comes the dead zone machine of Phil Yaw up to 2nd. Different race for Phil Yaw compared to the last one. A good start from the Porsche this time in the 027.
That's a name that we didn't call much there in the sprint, and he's doing a great job there as he's currently in that 2nd spot, as you mentioned. Have to shout out, though, the Penguin RC Simulation GTP team with they currently have both 1 and 2 with Adams and Lazier, as well as Blake Reynolds currently holding that 5th spot. So fantastic points showing for them. Meanwhile, your points leaders in the GTs of Kingsbury, Son, Crosgrove, and Kieran Forrest, and the other Penguin RC Simulation team, they're having a bit of struggles here today.
Oh, and Taylor getting some lump taps and now a slide around. There goes the Scuderia Properita machine off the circuit. The Mercedes AMG off into the grass.
And that was Kingsbury again. That's the 2nd time that he's had contact to send a car around.
So Taylor, after a little bit of rubbing and bumping in the battle for 16th overall off the circuit, losing a lot of ground as a result, all the way back to last on track goes Taylor from it. Meanwhile, Ray Kingsbury has Belton playing defense behind him on Fisher. Fisher, the teammate to Taylor. I
don't know if we'll be able to get a replay of that incident or not, but it did look like Taylor was already loose. He hammered the curb early on in that incident, and unfortunately, or sorry, not Taylor, that was the 77. Yeah, it was Taylor, okay. Sorry, the 77 of Taylor, when he went around, he was already hammering the curbs and sliding all across the racetrack, so have to see if we can't see the replay. There it is, and he was already loose, and that just is what Kingsbury was not expecting, that slow car right in front of him.
Take a little more look. This is from Kingsbury.
You see him here, just a little tap there from Kingsbury. Upset the car and then just can't correct it, and he gets him again.
So Rick Kingsbury, for reference, 5th in class. That situation still finding it out though with Belton now instead for that spot, in fact. Belton again has been very impressive with the Dirty Esport machine to start off the season. Was amongst those, remember, who played the patience game and took advantage last time out. He's 7th in his class coming into today. Oh, and he gets a love tap this time from Kingsbury.
And Kingsbury, I'm not sure if he's just seeing red tonight or what, but that's several times been involved in contact. And the interesting note, by the way, Belton is actually teammates with Ray's brother Matt on the Dirty Sport team, so rival teams there. They got the sibling rivalry between the two teams, and Jack Belton doing everything he can to make sure that the older Kingsbury wins that brotherly team battle.
Don't forget, a lot of experience when it comes to the Kingsburys and the league scene, running several organizations in the past, including Ray himself, part of this respective grouping here for SimCAR.
There's a car around. That's Siasco that was facing the wrong direction.
Marcus Siasco in the 88 machine. Off into the grass. It's Siasco for Puffer Zone Racing. Not having the funnest of times in the pufferfish machine, as there goes one of the TWR machines passed by the pink Ford.
And by the way, Jonathan Taylor, he was all the way dead last in 24th, already picked up 3 spots, and he's got Miglin in the sights now in the 41 Team Watson Racing colors, and he's doing everything he can to hold on to that spot. And
here's the replay.
Here's a look at the replay of what happened. Did the Watson Racing car get him? Yes, he did. And that's who's currently holding on, battling with Jonathan Taylor. That's Miglin who sent him around.
So Marcus Siasco in the Puffer Zone back machine. Going off and around. I will say this. It's very timely, let's put it that way, too, with the rise of pufferfish memes in iRacing. I'll just say that. Battle is back on, meanwhile, on the recovery for Taylor. And when you get spun around like in that situation, what goes through your mind in that situation, Chad?
Just the biggest thing for me is, you want to be aggressive and you want to, you want to make up time, make up ground, and just go fast. But you're going to compound your mistakes, and that's really going to cause some issues. So, fortunately enough, I think he's got enough time for Jonathan Taylor. He can make up some of these positions. The biggest thing, though, is he's got a 10-second gap now up to Tim Brokaw. So the next bit of time, he's going to have some clean racetrack, but he's got to take advantage of it and lay down some absolute flyers.
Speaking of flyers, off to yet again for Dirty Esport, doing so in the AM class. You see him up the road for one of the battles. Marchbanks holding off the teammate to him, Matt Kingsbury. Matt Kingsbury, we talked about in the conversation, up only the 1 spot. Marchbanks up 5 as part of the recovery.
Currently 11th in that pro class. Marwan Mafta holding his own, though, just outside the top 10 in GTs. And Mafta, he's got quite the gap over Brian Son for the moment. Drew White was actually battling with Son for a while, but he's lost 2 spots pretty quick, so he must have had some sort of an issue. Yeah, he had about a half lock a couple corners ago, so that caused him to lose some spots, but keeps the car on track. Unfortunately, though, for him, his tires are going to be a little worn down there after that one. He's going to have to consider maybe making one or a couple tires change at the pit stop.
That's if you have enough time to take tires, and the pit stop is the key one.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of those things where you might lose more time changing the tires, but at the same time, by the end of the race, if your tires are just ground down, if they're worn and you know, you've got something to where you're getting close to a puncture, you're going to lose a ton of time relative on track compared to what you might lose in the pits. So Drew White's going to have his work cut out for him these next 36 minutes.
Gonna say, with these types of cars, keep in mind, that's been the interesting thing for the past few months, especially on the service. You can push. The main thing has been the consistency among the tires. As there goes Jeff Johnson off the circuit. Johnson in a TWRS Esports entry, a second Esports entry for that respective grouping, mind you, off the track and into Robert Lowry. Oh my goodness!
That was a move that I don't think is going to garner much respect from him. That is just unfortunate for Lowry, and man, that's entirely on Drew White there. He waited and waited and waited. This is a separate incident here as well, and that car is just crap. Is that Dustin Lee Wilson?
Yes, it is. That was just after they passed him, too. Just after they got by the initial wreck in the back of Matthew Johnston. So about a third of the prototype field has crashed in 2 sets of corners. All this sparking off from a bad rejoin. Wow.
Yeah, there was a huge apology there from the 7, but apologies can only go so far. I mean,
oh, wow. He got turned.
Yeah, he had some help there, but watch this. He waits for traffic to clear, and then for some reason he guns it.
I thought there was an opening. No, there wasn't. And then the other 2 prototypes, they try and avoid the Ford, and they crash it. Good sportsmanship from Wentz to try and let him go and see if the damage was enough to give him the spot at least.
Yeah, so here's a look at that second replay. Just that checkup, that accordion effect is what sent him. Man, just the way that this race has kind of popped off the last couple of minutes, I can't wait to see what we've got in store the next 35.
So the transition for a lot of the DBR racing machines not going to plan today, to say the very least. Their prototype entries involved in incidents in at least one of the races. Speaking of traffic, here we go. The top 2, Adams and Lazier, pulled away by 3 seconds from Stewart. They look to try and settle forward. By the way, Blake Reynolds has also just already come to the pit lane. So Reynolds has now had an issue that has seen his front clip ripped off in the past minute, Chad. So a lot is happening now.
Yeah, I'm looking back to try to see if we can't figure out what happened to Blake Reynolds, because he was involved with some kind of... Oh my goodness, there was a huge wreck and just nowhere for him to go. Wow.
That one of his teammates? That's one of the Penguin RC cars who went around.
And this championship battle might just get a little more interesting if... because I think that Blake Reynolds was one of the guys we thought would be contending for the overall championship, and instead, now he's got some work to do. Is Sam Adams going to increase his points lead here as long as he can keep his car clean?
And that was your top AM driver from week 1. That was Son, who went around. And Son, remember, had been so pumped up after the strong finish, after all the work he put in through Penguin RC, mind you. And now, Blake Reynolds having to get the front clip repaired as a result. More than 2 minutes now in the pit lane. Adams and Lazier 1-2, half a second apart for a team 1-2.
So many GTs right now in the pit lane between Reynolds, Lowry, and Wilson. These guys taking some lengthy repairs, and it's going to be interesting to see when these guys are able to get out there and they're going to log some more laps just to try to get some points. Lowry's already taken some repairs. They just dropped it off the jacks, but I don't know how much more he's going to have to take to get that car fixed up. The front splitter pretty jacked up.
Nicholas Johnston, meanwhile, been having a very strong race for the Ford, and that was a major thought process throughout the season. What tracks would one of the oldest GT3s on the service be great at? The trend has usually been the speed tracks. Today, though, Johnston has been really performing strongly in that Ford for Pony Express presented by TWR.
Yes, looking at how things are going for him, it's been a fantastic run. He continues to to try to catch back up to Youngwall, but he's feeling some pressure from Cosgrove and Belton. They're all right there in a line with Joshua Flyaw in there as well. I want to make note, though, John Marshman talked about his struggles in the sprint, working his way up here through the field, currently in the 10th spot in the GT class, but he's got a significant amount of damage to the right rear of his 37 machine. So he's going to have his work cut out for him if he wants to continue to pick up spots. He's all over the back of Jake Fisher at the moment.
That right side damage may be a bit of a factor for him. Keep in mind, he had been around Jake Fisher and company prior to the late race fireworks in the sprint race. Oh, and some trouble for the AM leader, possibly. The 191 has had a technical problem, and that's a little scare. It's a little scare. It's an 8-second advantage over Tim Brokaw. And with the way things are shaping up, Mofta has a great chance to pick up a lot of ground in the championship on the M side, as long as things stay stable for that driver in that car. About 15 minutes in this time around. Yeah, still seeing plenty of battling as Belton looking for a move. Cody Cosgrove holding on defensively in one of the Penguin RC cars.
Jack Belton, one of the international drivers, adding some flair to this field, and he's running the Norwich City colors as well as the Union Jack on the roof of his car, and he's a driver we've seen in the series time and time again, currently up in the 4th position in the GTs, and he's looking to get third from Cody Cosgrove. He wants that podium.
So how do you set this up here? Knowing you still have a pit stop, but at the same time, I've tried to make several moves. How do you set this up? Because it seems like Belton may be quicker. It was 3/10 quicker last time.
I think that the biggest thing is just waiting for an opportunity to get the pass done. Cosgrove has shown he's got the pace, and Johnson, one of the newer drivers to the series, he's a little bit of an unknown. He's fast if he's going to be up there this high in the field, this far into the race. Belton goes wide, and just as we're talking about what he has to do to make up time, he gets the wall. Now he's going to have to play catch up. He's just going to have to push all out the rest of the race.
Belton, significant damage and backing up in the middle of the racetrack. Oh my goodness.
That's the second time we've seen a driver just not at speed come across the racetrack. That was Marshbanks that had to go wide, and wow.
Matt Kingsbury, his teammate, nearly T-bones him in the middle of the racetrack. Wow. What was he doing?
And now he's just hammering the curbs. He's trying to get his rhythm back and trying to feel things out. He's battling now with the 77, one of the other Brits in the series with Jonathan Taylor. You can see they both rocking that Union Jack on the roof of their car. They're stuck behind that TWR AM driver of Drew White, and they've got some work to do. And almost sending it 3 wide there was Belton. He wants to get by. He knows he's faster than these guys. The question is, can he capitalize, and can he make up some ground? He was into the 4th spot, and now he's all the way back in 16th.
So Drew White getting passed on by there. Belton. Well, where do you start? Wow.
I think that there's going to be some discussion after the race about rejoins and kind of using your relative being a heads-up driver, because that's several incidents here in this event. And let's take a look at the replay here. I believe this is Kingsbury that's going to be coming up on the...
I believe this is live action now you're looking at, yes. Yep. But I think it's more the question of, was it the ricochet from the wall, or was it him in the grass in the backup is the question.
He was absolutely backing up. He was almost to a complete stop before he put it in reverse. He had the wheels turned full lock to the right and trying to turn the car in the proper direction, but not the smartest move there from Jack Belton, and I think that was just him not thinking, being too angry at himself, and just pushing after it.
Cosgrove now up to 2nd in the GTs meanwhile. He tries to pull away from Johnston, Phil Yaw, and Ray Kingsbury. Pit stops coming around the corner here on FTFGG, reaching the halfway point here from Sebring. More coverage of SimCAR coming up right after this message. Looking at one of the Fords, as that's Wayne, who's just had an issue heading off towards the Omen Straight. Where's Le Mans? Some drivers having some spins, some others looking to try and keep themselves going forward here. With 13 estimated laps to go, about 24 minutes on clock. Justin Pritz alongside Chad Urban in the broadcast booth here tonight. So far, it's been intriguing, let's put it that way, Chad, especially with some of the troubles for your top runners.
Yeah, we saw Ryan Steinhoff during the break have a spin, just dip 2 tires into the grass and stunt himself around as we see the replay of that incident. We've also had some drivers work their way down the pit lane. This is just how much these drivers are pushing, using every bit of the track. Just barely dipped his left sides into the grass and sent himself around. We've also had Nate Stewart come into pit lane during the break, and looks like Jack Belton is down as well. So drivers starting to make their pit stops, and this is where the strategy comes into play. I believe most guys are going to do everything they can to just log laps and keep themselves going. Robert Lowry has gotten back into the track. Nate Stewart has had an issue.
Nate Stewart, who just pit a moment or two ago, has wrecked on his out lap. He had been on his own. What happened here?
Caught the curb just too much, and the car snapped around. He hit the back end so hard that he blew the engine on that car. That's something that's hard to do in these things.
I don't think I've seen a car go around that quick on the curbing at that part of the racetrack ever.
No, absolutely not. But something to note as well, Robert Lowry, who was involved in some incidents earlier, he was down for 11 and a half minutes taking repairs. He is back out on track. I'm not sure that he'll have enough time to get around Nate Stewart, but Nate is, after the damage to his engine, that was catastrophic failure. He is done for the day.
Pit stop signal given over the radio from Cosgrove. Johnston just making the pass prior to that call, too. So Johnston now in the clean space. Cosgrove already making the hard right turn. Start off his pit cycle amongst the Penguin RC simulation cars. Cosgrove, very strong day so far in the 0-2.
And I think that might be a smart move for him. You know, he's one of those drivers who's near the front but couldn't quite get up to the top spot. But now he's going to be able to push and hopefully have some clean traffic as he gets back out there. And he does go up on the jack, so he's going to take some sort of tires here as well.
Kingsbury also in this time as we take a look at the overall leader still. And Adams is proving to be the driver to beat this year in this class. Amongst not just this team, but as a whole when you consider it, it's been impressive what Adams has done. As into the grass goes Lazier with the traffic management.
Yeah, we've seen him in the series time and time again. Very aggressive driver, Flynn Lazier. So he's going to work his way. And it looks like we got more people working their way down pit lane. Aaron Beaver in the 97, currently pitting from the 4th spot there in the prototypes.
Prototype window open. 40 of the drivers here. One of those who has been very strong throughout the season in the prototypes. Those who is also now standing by and out of the race for the time being. Just so happens to be one of those in the pit lane, Blake Reynolds. Blake, what happened?
Just saw a crash way too late. I went to cross over. That section's real tricky there right before the back straightaway, the right, left, right. And I was patiently waiting behind, I believe it was Drew White. And by the time I crossed him over to get my run down the straightaway, a hybrid deployment, there was a car coming back across the track. So apologies to Drew. He kind of chirped at me. But I don't think I could have done anything different. If I checked up, I think the GT car behind him would have just backed into me. So it was kind of just a bad spot.
Pit stop for Flynn Lazier, one of your teammates. But it's been a strong season to start off, though, for the SimRC simulation BMW hybrid V8s on that racetrack. How would you describe that team effort from you guys this year?
Well, apart from me, it's been solid. I mean, Sam's a ripper. Flynn's showing up this week. That car's going to be a part-time car. I believe we'll have Sarah Rabb and Michael Gonzalez making starts in that car, or an extra car. Who knows? As for me, this is my 2nd wreck of the season. So that's not very good for my championship hopes, especially going against Sam and Nate as well. It just not good for me, but good for the team. Our GT squad, too. I mean, look at Cody out there doing the best he can. Christian this week looks to be unstoppable.
Now,
Dare I give him a commentator's curse.
now, Blake, I gotta ask you, what's it like here having a couple more prototypes out there than we're used to? Because we saw the field just about double from last week.
Yeah, and from last season, too. It's the LMDH field. I've kind of started an initiative. I just give away my setup every week. Whatever I find, I give out, and I've kind of put it in the driver's heads as well. If you have a setup, feel free to share. We want to make it as fixed as possible so that our participation's up in. It's pretty good. Pretty good so far.
And the interesting thing I've found throughout this campaign, to ask your opinion on the Sam side of things, because Sam Adams, of course, a longtime veteran on the oval scene on iRacing, and then looked into background for this side. He's one of the drivers, the few, in fact, who has experience racing here at Sebring, in fact, from around the 2010s. Your thoughts on Sad Adams, who not only has been a longtime oval veteran, but a railroad road course racing ace?
Yeah, he's pretty good. There's a clip, actually, of him stopping right about where Flynn is right now, at the end of the back straightaway in the grass, on fire. From his, I believe it was a Prelude Challenger race in Cayman. Yeah, it's good to know, because he has a really good feeling, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. In all road cars and even on oval, it kind of transfers over, because the tires are similar in iRacing. But he's been a long-standing member at Zone Racing, my oval team, and I'm glad we brought him onto the Penguin RC squad. This roster is getting good.
So, you mentioned the 2 crashes now to start off the season. Next time out, it's the first endurance round of the campaign, as we head to the French countryside on April the 6th. Quick opinions on what to expect when we go there, to France.
Well, we haven't decided our time of day yet. It's either going to be a fully nighttime, or day to night, or morning to, or like kind of night to morning. We haven't really decided that yet. But I'm looking forward to it. It's our new enduro format, hour-and-a-half race, no sprint. You just show up and hour-and-a-half race. Keeps it pretty condensed, without the break in the middle. Yeah, cool new format, and we're having 2 this season. The other one's at Daytona later in the season.
Crash for Ryan Steinhoff, off into the grass, and another bad luck streak hitting one of the new prototypes in the field tonight. We mentioned DBR Racing having drivers switch over to that grouping. Just about all of them have been involved in at least one incident per race. Steinhoff, the second amongst his team, now out of the feature.
Yeah, that car just snapped under braking, and is that just too much rear brake bias sending the thing around? Because that was very weird how that thing just came around as he was braking, and I'm surprised that there's that much damage with the way that he hit the wall. It didn't seem like it was as hard as I guess it really was.
So in these cars, it's very easy to lock the rear brakes. The setup that I shared to everyone, and everyone should be running, to my knowledge, it's pretty good on the brake. You give a good pedal and it won't do that, but it is possible Ryan was adjusting, trying to get some handling. If you get to 100% though, it'll do that, and that's a pretty. It's kind of a downhill, I believe. It's slightly downhill in that braking zone, so it's entirely possible that he gave it a little bit too much brake there and got sideways.
Coming up to 15 minutes to go on the clock. Blake Reynolds with us in the booth, along with myself and Chad Irvine. The AM battle for the lead has had its first change of the day because of fuel strategy. Get your insight on this, Blake. A 5-second difference in the fuel strat from Brokaw compared to Mofta.
That is interesting. It is possible Marwin might have taken tires in this stop. I knew there were some GT3 teams in warm-up deciding if they wanted to take tires or not. I'll go back here and look at Marwin's pit stop. Let's see whether that's the case. Yep, Marwin did indeed take tires, and Tim did not.
So it leads to the question, based on what you guys tested along, well, with some of your fellow Penguin RC drivers for the GT entry, what do you think could be the better strength, tires or no tires?
Well, we'll have to see in the last couple minutes of this race here. That's really when it happens. when you take that second load of fuel, especially in a GT car, and just the way that the weight feels in these cars now with the tire combo, it's real tough. It's real tough, especially at the end of these official IMSA races that are 45 minutes. Our feature race emulates that. So we'll see here if that's the case. If maybe Tim's tires fall up, but a lot of the field looks to just have taken no tires. I see Cody Crossgrove up in the pro category. He's down to 5th right now, and he was running 2nd or 3rd. He was up in that pack, and it looks like he took tires. Same thing, a 46.2 in the pit compared to, say, Filia's 40.6.
Yeah, 5 seconds longer to stop. I believe you can take a singular tire in these cars as well. Is that right?
I think so, but with the way the IMSA rules are now, you can take fuel and tires at the same time. That's probably what happened. I do know last week. Sorry.
Yep. You go ahead.
We last week or 2 weeks ago at our Road America round, there was some GT teams that took tires, and it was a big benefit. So maybe that was on people's minds, but to my knowledge, I don't think people in IMSA are taking tires at all in the official series.
I'm gonna say, it's been seen a lot at the high levels of special events in particular, Blake, that we've found intriguing too over the time is the best know how to minimize the tire wear, where it's a couple tenths at most, it seems, the fall off. Some drivers have that 1 second plus. It's difficult to save though. How difficult is it to save from the cockpit though?
Well, typically I save tires through fuel saving. So on road, I kind of just like to run a singular pace and don't like to change it up a whole lot. But I do like to find ways to go fast fuel saving, and that ultimately saves tires. So that's the way I do it. But I do know Christian, based on his iRating, same with Nick Johnston in 2nd place. They're high enough rated. They probably run enough to where they understand the tire model more than most people. So
yeah, this is a look at the battle, by the way, for the podium spot in the GTs. Kingsbury and Filia battling for that 3rd spot, and you might have to have a conversation with your teammate on the sister team in the GTs with Ray. You might have to ground him for a week or something. He's had quite the bit of contact here this event.
Well, I'll have to go take a look at that. Obviously, we do the penalty review, me and Ray and Brandon, and any other driver that wants to do it. We do that on the off Thursday. But how about Josh Filia? I know he ran pretty solidly in the top 10 last race. But the Porsche is not a good car. It hasn't been for a couple seasons now. On the long run, it is pretty solid, but Josh Filia is ripping right now in that Porsche.
Filia amongst those with Dead Zone Racing, indeed. And again, another name that, at least for those from the outside looking in, think of Josh as amongst those who are on the oval side, who again, showing similar to the manner of Nate Stewart and a couple others, the strength it seems tonight, Blake, on the road course side. As, look at this, side by side the teammates. Lazier takes the advantage away from Sam Adams. Adams nearly off the track.
Wow, what a battle.
Adams had just lost the lead down the previous straightaway to Lazier. Lazier now looking to try and run away. Lazier had ran in 2nd spot all throughout the last race in the sprint side of the card. Adams looking for the lead back in the traffic.
And that's the big thing. You got to look at this traffic once again, because in the sprint, that's really where Lazier is able to make up time. Adams was not the cleanest getting through, or he was clean, but he was not the quickest at getting through. Now he's thinking about forcing the issue 3 wide, side by side now with Flynn to the inside.
Wow.
Adams keeps it little loose. Lazier with a squeeze. How about 3 wide lap car middle?
This is fantastic racing. These guys are both capable of it, but these GT... Oh, Jake Fisher around the background there. But, there's still 3 wide. Oh, my God.
And Adams back to the point.
Adams able to make the move work. The driver off of the grass, and Fisher had been the one taking 3 wide before. Lazier back to the inside, up to the home and straight. Squeezes off Adams, coming to 6 laps to go.
And I thought that was a mistake from Adams when he chose his position there with, I thought he was going to be boxed in by the two GTs, but somehow worked his way through, got by Lazier, but now Lazier back to the point.
Taylor with a little bit of a spook there as Kingsbury goes on to the left side as well. And it's pretty clear. Lazier does not want to give in here. Playing with the snake down the straights.
And these guys are teammates, so they are going to have to kind of keep that in mind. You can race each other as hard as you want, but number one rule in racing, don't wreck your teammate.
Adams trying to line things back up. 1 lap difference on the stint strategies. Keep in mind between Adams and Lazier. A few more drivers left to go in respective packs before they get some clean space again. 5.5 estimated laps to go. Under 9 minutes on the clock. And traffic has been huge all day, Blake.
Yeah, it's pretty tough here. The straightaways just aren't long enough sometimes for the LMDH to really kick in its top-end speed over some of these GT cars, but everyone's been doing a good job so far. I mean, that battle... that battle...
Oh, look at this! Contact! Adams on the sends Lazier off from the sand trap. Adams is off the track as well. Both of them save it down the straightaway as they head up to Bishop.
I think that was a little bit of a curse there on my part. We'll keep going. They're still close together. I think maybe Sam's trying to get them back in the draft so they can continue this battle. Who knows? But, oh my god, they're catching up to the front of the pro field here.
Yeah, now they have Marchbanks again. Last time Marchbanks had a bit of a spook, a little hard cut for Adams. Lazier sends it up 3 wide again with the traffic. Lazier makes more contact. He's inside Adams. Adams nearly to the tire barrier.
Oh my god.
Now, Blake, I have to ask, when you're driving these prototypes, is there a difference?
No!
Oh, contact! Contact! No!
Of course they hit Philia. Oh, that's great.
Philia gets spun back. Now in the lead is Sam Adams. Lazier sliding and saving it in the background. My goodness.
Oh, for those that don't know, those 3 are all in the same Discord channel, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on right now, but Sam's got the lead. Looks like Flynn's still clean, and Philly keep going. But I know Josh is probably just laying into whoever caused that right there.
Now, Blake, I was just getting ready to ask you, is there a difference in your mindset or how you have to attack things when you're going through, say, the back markers of the field versus these guys that are running at the front of the GT class?
Yeah, there's certainly a list of drivers where I give more space or try to understand their move. I had an awkward incident with Mofta actually in the sprint race. That was kind of weird. He was trying to let me go, but I thought he was going to do the GT car thing where they just run their line and make me pass. So it's a little awkward to read sometimes, but once you build that list in your mind of like who does what, then you kind of get a good understanding.
Coming up to 6 minutes to go. The gap 5.8 seconds now. Several battles now underway still with Marchbanks looking to try and leap himself forward to 12th overall. Here comes Philia wanting some spots back too. Oh, and Philia doesn't want to give any back as well.
It's a pretty defensive move. We do have some blocking rules, so hopefully that wasn't too egregious. We'll look back at that in our penalty review, but good move nonetheless from Philia.
Just want to make note of it, by the way. About a lap ago, Jake Fisher had an off track. He spun his car, ended up contacting the wall. Not very hard, but he came down pit lane and ended up retiring from the event. So surprising to see as he was still on the lead lap at the time. But these guys just absolutely fighting out there.
Well, one thing to mention here. You see Chris Wett's coming back on the racetrack. Normally we see contact where a GT3 is sent off the circuit by a prototype. What happens when you reverse those rules? Christian Yunwall, the leader for the GT3s, accidentally sends Wetz off the track.
Yeah, awkward spot. Wetz is a little damaged. Obviously, it's one of the He's not fully on the pace in the LMDH field, and that's the leader. That's the guy who probably understands the brakes the best in the GT3s right now. So, Christian hopped in line right behind him, and Chris just checked up a little bit more than Christian was expecting, I guess.
Well, it's a quick apology over the radio, and Wet's still able to make the pass cleanly. So Wet's, after taking the Joker lap accidentally, ends up still moving forward. By the way, he is in 4th. Chris Wetz been able to keep his car going to the point where he has a strong finish in line. Aaron Beaver in particular, I think, is the bigger of that, because Beaver had a disastrous sprint race. He's 3rd in class.
Yeah, we see this in real life. Quite a few LMDHs retired from the real Sebring 12 hours, and some awkward people got on the podium, specifically that BMW, which we have in iRacing here. It is not on the pace in real life, and they were able to get 1, maybe 2 of them on the podium. I can't remember, but
I mean,
the fact that there was an LMP2 on the podium at the Sebring 12-hour was incredible to watch.
I mean, the entire top 3 wrecked in that race. Oh, speaking of wrecks, Phil Yaw has just wrecked his car.
oh no.
Oh, and he's backing up into the racing line, able to avoid contact. That was Matt Kingsbury and Jonathan Taylor driving by.
And that's the first time I think we've seen a car lose it there at Sunset Bend here tonight.
The tires are getting old, and it is getting later in the day. Track temp's 90 degrees. It's actually cooling down a little bit, but one of the cool, newer features of iRacing is the track, I believe it's called track polishing. And the offline, if you're off the racing line, you can see it's kind of not as dark as the racing line. It is tough, especially the further you get in the race. And this is one of those tracks where the racing line is the place to be, and you can definitely feel it when you're not on it.
Phil Yaw in turn has jumped right into a battle for 10th in the car class. Belton in up the right side, up to the hairpin, and a little bit of a door bang. Phil Yaw with the door bang back. 2.5 estimated to go for the class.
Still side by side.
Belton.
Both these guys have had incidents in this race, so.
Oh, and Phil Yaw now running to the back end. Having to check up for Belton. Yeah, they're not afraid of the contact right now.
Hey, that's no penalty. That's just some good contact, if there is good contact. But that is good contact. Meanwhile, right behind him, how about shout out Marwan Mafta, took tires in that stop, and he was behind Tim Brokaw for a good bit there. But in the midst of that prototype battle between Flynn and Adams, Marwan has passed him and sailed away on those fresher tires.
Mafta, talked about by Chad, coming over from the jumpy trucks on the service as well. Strong performance here tonight. Coming up to 2 estimated laps to go, looking for both the AM victories tonight. For reference, by the way, the overall lead still separated about 7 seconds. Flynn Lazier has not been able to find ground back on Sam Adams. And most of the air groupings have gone to 2-car battle packs with about a minute to go on the clock, Chad.
Yeah, and these guys are just absolutely flying out there. Under 2 minutes to go. This is crunch time for these drivers. Unfortunately, the battle between Adams and Lazier is kind of fizzled out, but further back throughout the pack, there is still some fantastic racing to be had. And these guys, especially like Kevin Fanning, wants to get up to the 4th spot. He's right on the back of Ray Kingsbury.
Phil Yaw, meanwhile, still trying to find a way around Belton. Looking a little defensive is the Dirty Sport driver. Phil Yaw looking to cross him up, sends it deep, slams it into the left side of his door. Phil Yaw takes the spot. Howdy do. Final lap now triggered. Final time around from Sebring. Meanwhile, Adams has taken the white flag, looking to close things out with a 7-second advantage over the 3 of Flynn Lazier.
By the way, we just saw that battle between Phil Yaw and Belton kind of fizzle out a little bit, but now Belton's going to be feeling the pressure from the AM class leader of Marwan Mafta, currently in that 12th position in the GTs, and he wants to get that back. And here you go. Here comes some of the faster traffic. That's Lowry that just went by. He is currently all the way down in 6th. in the prototype category. He had an incident and spent considerable time there on the pit lane. So Lowry working his way through some traffic trying to recover. He's got that spot basically locked up. Everybody behind him has retired from the event.
You know, Justin, I'll give that rating for Philia. I'll give it a 3 out of 10 because I did not like that. That's a little aggressive. I'll give it a 3 out of 10 because, I mean, executed, but not the cleanest.
How would you rate the execution for Adams today?
Considering I think he wrecked twice in this race, technically. I don't know. I'll give him a 6. Can't be perfect. Flynn, I'll give him a 7. I think he did a better job. He started further back.
Sam Adams, meanwhile, coming out of the final corner. Still able to execute, still able to come away with a round sweep again. This time he does it at Sebring, beating Flynn Lazier by 5 seconds. A team 1-2.
That gap to third in the prototype just shows how dominant they were. They got a minute over the 97 of Aaron Beaver there, and that's just these two guys there for Penguin RC and their teammate as well here in the booth. Blake, I can't forget about you. You guys are fast out there. You just got to keep things a little cleaner there, Blake.
Bad news, by the way. By the way, Blake, your engine just blew.
Yeah, I heard it. We're not too far away from the pit in the commentary booth. We're not too far away from my pit stall there.
And here comes Youngwall off the final quarter. Fantastic bit of driving from him here tonight. And Christian Youngwall, with a 30-second gap over Nicholas Johnson, continues his dominant performance here this week.
Absolutely. What a race from him.
A race has been for Mofta as well. He took the tire strategy and made it work. How about double-digit seconds up to close out the run and a teammate in front and Jack Belton to work off of. Mofta looking stellar here in Florida, to say the very least. He came into today, for reference, 16th in the GT3 point standings amongst the car type.
Let's see. He is on fresher tires. Let's see. One more corner. Can he do anything with Jack here?
Well, they might be able to do something on Marshbanks because Marshbanks is slowing. Belton sends himself into the wall. Belton in the wall. There goes the M winner, and Mofta, he still wins regardless, but Belton, a disastrous final few minutes, he drops all the way back. After a crash, and he spins Philia around with him.
Oh my, there is some beef. There is some beef after this event. Oh my goodness.
Marshbanks, by the way, did run out of gas. He still finished ahead. He did not beat Belton despite Belton hitting the wall. Wow.
That was an insane finish.
Talk about licking the stamp.
I mean,
and he still beats Marshbanks.
Was he trying to wreck Philia? What was the deal there?
Well, Philia's already wrecked himself in the wall after the finish, and then, hello.
I think he just had a little fun after the finish. There's no harm in that one.
Maybe, but obviously, maybe Jack wasn't too thrilled with the way Philia was racing him. Oh,
so
man.
Let's take a look at the unofficial race results, because man, oh man, what a feature. Sam Adams picks up the victory once more by 5.4 seconds. Team 1-2 with Flynn Lazier, the second of the two. Aaron Beaver picks up a third place finish. He is the only driver left on his team standing for DBR Racing in their prototype debut. Chris Wentz and Justin Maluo, very quietly tonight, survives for FTF Drivers Club, one lap down to still finish with the top 5. Meanwhile, overall for the GTs, it's Youngwall who once again picks up the victory. Youngwall, veteran from multiple different platforms. He picks up the victory over Nicholas Johnston, Cody Crossgrove, Ray Kingsbury, and how about Kevin Fanning, a top 5 tonight, Chad?
Yeah, some of these guys had some amazing runs through the field to get back up to the top 5. Navar Lutz gets the 6th spot, or the 10th or 11th overall spot, 6th in class. Then Jonathan Taylor, Matt Kingsbury, and Joshua Philia wrapping up the 14th. And then Marwan Mofta, the M-Class leader for Team Dirty Sport, and his teammate Jack Belton right there with them in 16th. And Zhongzhen Wang with Tim Brokaw there, the second class in the AM class driver there, 18th overall. John Marshbanks and then Drew White finishes up the podium in the AM category. You mentioned these are unofficial results, and I think they'll stay that way for a while. We have to wait and see what the penalties are going to be because there's a lot of contact out there today.
21st today. Meanwhile, how about 4th and AM? Marcus Ciasco, 4 laps down despite that. Robert Lowry did get his car fixed after the issues with the traffic management and rejoins. He finishes inside the top 6 of the prototypes. Matthew Johnston, Jake Fisher, Ryan Steinhoff, a DNF. It's Brian Sawn in 26. Freeman, Stewart, Wilson, Abedi, top 30 overall on the pylon. Hondo, Reynolds, Miglin, and Johnson. 34 entrants here this evening, here on FTFGG. And where do we begin? Well, that was an intriguing round to say the very least, but it's Sam Adams who picks up the top points today. With that, Sam Adams gets to step on the top step of the podium at a track he raced out in the past into Cayman. He does it this time in a BMW. Sam, congratulations on the victory today. How's it feel at this racetrack to come away with the victory at a circuit where Blake mentioned you were once on fire at?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The track was super slick, all through practice, qualifying, and both races. So it was a real challenge. The race was a ton of fun. I hate that I got into Flynn there with a couple laps to go. We were having a great battle, probably one of the most fun battles I've had on iRacing in quite some time. But all in all, it was a good race, but definitely a challenging one with all the traffic and the speed difference and whatnot.
I want to ask, because Blake did mention that you, Flynn, and it just so happened Joshua were apparently in the same voice chat during that race. What was the conversation like in the moment and then with the big kaboom?
Yeah, I think, in the moment, it was pretty quiet. I think Josh yelled at me a little bit when I kind of sideswiped him there, and I apologized to him. So it was a little heated in the moment, but we all talked about it after, and it was just kind of one of those things that, unfortunately, I was just trying to follow Flynn through there, and I thought he was going to get up the inside of that next GT3 car, and he kind of had to stop in front of me. And it was all at the same time when I was next to Josh, and I sideswiped him. But not the way I wanted to win. I definitely wanted that battle to go on, all the way to the last lap, because it was a hell of a battle for sure.
So when it comes to the car tonight as well, seemed guys very quick when it comes to prototypes. Like also mentioning the setup coming from your respective squad as well. What was it like trying to set this car up, finding that right balance for a track like Sebring?
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty tricky. I'm not a setup expert by any means, but it was. I think what was happening was you have to run the car a little bit higher because of all the bumps in the surface here, and I think it's you're losing a lot of that downforce from running the car higher. So the rear end was really unstable. I know I was trying to get as much mechanical grip out of the car as possible because without that downforce and with the track temp being so high, it made for a pretty good challenge.
So another max points day for you, Sam. Anyone you want to give a shout out to real quick?
Yeah, thanks to Blake, obviously, for getting me hooked up with this series and getting everybody hooked up with this series, and then Brian from Penguin RC for putting on the show and also having me on the team. It's going to be a fun year. With it looks like the LMDH field's growing, which is good. So if we can keep getting more and more guys in the LMDH field, it'll be even better.
Sam Adams, thank you very much for the time. Congratulations on another double podium and a double win.
Thanks.
Sam Adams with the victory, a Team 1-2 for Penguin RC Simulations, their prototype squad here tonight. Meanwhile, let's change over to the GTs, where it was Christian Yunwall who put on another dominating performance. He's with Chad.
Yeah, Christian, a fantastic show out there tonight and a dominating win. Looked like once the green flag came out, you were just pulling away.
Oh, thank you. I've been doing Sebring with the GT3 the last 2 weeks and stuff, and it's been just coming together and was setting my PBs today at the end of the race. So definitely happy with how the car drove, the conditions, and just my performance overall just felt pretty good.
Yeah, what's it like at a track like this where you got multi-class racing? You've obviously got yourself a bit of a buffer to cars behind in class, but you're obviously still have to watch your mirrors for those faster guys. What's it like at a track like this where you don't have a lot of room for mistakes as there's walls just about everywhere?
Well, I think luckily being the number one car, a lot of the spotters and stuff warn you that it's the leader of the class. So I think a lot of the LMDs really are easy around the top cars because you get warned by your spotter. But when you're kind of in the mix and stuff, and you're trying to focus on a battle or anything, just anywhere at this track is not easy to deal with traffic, especially in like anywhere from turn basically 1 to 16. I mean, anywhere there you could just be touched and right into the wall. So there's really no room for error. So I was lucky I had enough time and enough gap that I could just coast or brake a little early if I saw one of them coming. Or I mean, I did unfortunately rear end. I forget who it was slightly, but besides that, I didn't really have any incidents. So I felt pretty lucky this race.
And now you're 2 races into the season. You're used to the sprint and the format, or sprint and feature format. Next week or next time out, we change things up and go to the endurance. Does that change your strategy at all, going to a straight 90-minute race at Le Mans?
Well, I don't know if it would necessarily change it 100%, but being Le Mans, the Audi definitely has its issues there, especially around the Porsche curves. It gets very, very finicky. So I think I'm going to have to risk more of a safer, maybe a higher downforce than I would prefer there, just so I can make it to the end. Because Le Mans is one of those tracks where it's a bit tricky in a rear engine car, whereas I think the BMWs and Mercs will really dominate the next race. But I think for normal cases like Daytona, for that, I think I'll do my normal strategy, kind of try and run the fastest set and just be as fast as I can.
Well, hey, it was a fantastic performance out there for you. Do you have anybody you want to thank? Any shout outs for you?
Just shout out to Kuwaka Racing, I guess. We did pretty good. Unfortunately, I know John had a few incidents. I think he got knocked up there with Jack or Matt at one point, one of the brothers. And we just had good. Caps really gave me enough fuel again, so thankful for that, and just happy to be here.
Well, congratulations on that performance. We'll see you 2 weeks' time at Le Mans.
Thank you.
That's Christian Youngwell, the GT class winner here tonight, and a couple more interviews coming your way. Looks like JP, you've caught up with the second place finisher in the GTs, Nicholas Johnston.
Nicholas Johnston indeed doing very strongly tonight in the Ford. First things first, how was it trying to find the speed that you had tonight in the Ford?
Really, it's all up to my team and the whole Team Watson Racing crew. They've done a lot of work with this car in the past couple of weeks, trying to find out what it likes and what it doesn't like. It's not a well-ran car throughout the service, so kind of got to be on our own and figure out what the car needs. And I think we hit a pretty good spot tonight. We're a lot closer than we've been. I think we're kind of inching closer to what the car needs, and I don't care what setup you put into that car. I was not keeping up with Christian tonight. That guy was on a class of his own, so I'm very happy to take 2 second places.
So what did the car like it seemed based on what you were able to find, you and your team?
I'm really just adjusting, getting the right amount of rake in the car and messing with the rear toe a lot to find the balance between not losing the rear end on entry and still having that good drive off. So we're inching closer on it. We're still development to be had. There's time out there for sure. There was a lot of times in the race where I felt like I was having to underdrive the car just to make sure I can keep going around the track. So I feel like we can definitely keep making gains in the weeks to come and hopefully get closer to maybe jumping on that top step at some point.
French Countryside's up next, and good news for your car. It just so happens to be very quick on the speed tracks. Daytona, French Countryside. So, in turn, what will that approach now be like knowing it's the first endurance round of the season?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for to go to that track because I feel like the car's going to have a big advantage there with the straight line speed. So I think we're going to put a lot of effort and kind of all of our eggs in that basket to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a line and make sure we can put our best foot forward there, because I think that's probably going to be one of our better chances to score a victory. And I'll be doing a lot of testing with my teammates to make sure of that.
Any shout outs you want to give before we let you go?
Just all the Team Watson Racing guys. They put a lot of work into this car, and they've done a lot of hard testing. I've been out of town the past week and a half, so I really haven't been able to test with them. So really got to thank those guys. I just kind of showed up tonight, and they had a car ready to go for me. So I'm really thankful for them. They did a really great job. Thanks to you guys for putting on broadcast for people to watch. It's fun to be able to show friends and family this kind of stuff, and the SimCAR League for giving me a place to race on Thursday nights.
Once again, congratulations on the podium, Nicholas.
Appreciate it. You have a great night.
That's Nicholas Johnston coming away. Strong run in the Ford. Top 3 both races in the class. Rounding out tonight's post-race interviews, third in the prototypes, Aaron Beaver. After the car change, he's with someone who's been very eager to speak with the Beaver, Blake Reynolds.
Aaron, how was your race?
Hey, it was interesting. I mean, the sprint race was horrible. I can't believe I did that. Took out my teammate. That was bad. But the, feature that went great. I just started in the back. I let everybody go basically and just followed along. And, I am more of an endurance racer anyway. So it was more my cup of tea just to, do my laps and wait and get the spots where I could. So the second race, really went well.
And you switched over. You were in, I believe, a Lamborghini the first race?
Yeah, we were in the Lambo. And then when you asked, for more hybrids, I talked to my team and we all jumped on the chance, because it's enjoyable to drive these cars. Just got to be patient. When you get in the lap traffic, it's better to lose 1 second than end up in the pits and, losing minutes.
Yeah, I know it was a little tough for Dustin tonight, but how is that going so far? How are you liking the prototype?
I like it. It's a little different to drive. I had to get used to the braking. The braking is really, different compared to GT3s. But once you kind of get a grasp of it and understand it, then it's, not too bad.
Well, congrats on the podium. I wanted to shout you out because, you just switched over. You never know when you'll get another podium again, really. I mean, really, that goes for anyone. For me this season, it seems to be that way too. I never know I'm going to finish one of these races. So whenever someone gets a good result, I want to recognize it. So congrats on your podium tonight. You want to shout out anyone?
And I just want to thank my, teammates for, helping me and for the practice, we put in and stuff. So yeah, it was a good time.
All right. Thank you.
That's Aaron Beaver rounding out post-race interviews here on FTFGG. I'd like to thank him as well as the rest of the drivers for taking the time to speak with us here during post-race coverage. Blake, first of all, you raced throughout the night. Your thoughts on how the night overall went from your perspective?
Solid. I think that very entertaining last half of that, or really the last 2/3 of that feature race. Sprint race, the prototypes only passed the GT field once, so it's really, kind of a one and done. I mean, it's only 15 minutes, so. But that feature race, a lot of different strategies throughout the GT field. The prototypes had some attrition, so we had some good results from some unlikely drivers. And as for me, I got to drink my water a little faster, I guess. I only raced about 20 minutes, so it feels good, and I'm glad. It seemed entertaining. How was it to y'all?
I'll let you answer that one, Chad, first.
Yeah, it was hectic all throughout the night. Incidents left and right. So not the cleanest of events, but it was so much fun to watch. Some fantastic battles, and it really seemed to come down to the wire in just about every category all throughout. So some fantastic battles, great racing, and can't wait to see the first endurance race of the event next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the true test for some of the drivers. The first of 2 endurance rounds on the calendar. An hour and a half plus a full course yellow, a part of the format. French countryside, the 24-hour layout of that said circuit. April the 6th. How the time of day will play out, as mentioned by Blake, to be determined still. You can catch that here on FTFGG. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye for now. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage of SimCAR and the Penguin RC Grand Am Series from iRacing's virtual Sebring Raceway. Congratulations to Adams, Yunwall, along with Mofta, your feature race winners from Florida. Good night. We'll see you next time.